Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 50 of the Launch Sequence podcast. I'm excited to be here, finally. It's taken forever. We got a new intro. We got two awesome guests today, XeroState and Moist Noodle, coming in here, and we're hopefully going to try and have a conversation about what we enjoy about Star Citizen right now, the small list, or we'll see how big the list is. But how are you guys doing today?
After you, Zero.
Oh, God. This is
a
repeat of a sound check.
I'm doing well. It's early on a Saturday for me. I stayed up a little bit too late last night.
I dig
but
it.
I'm caffeinated and I'm feeling good.
I'm doing all right also. It's also very early for me. It's 10 to 4 in the afternoon.
Ooh.
So, but I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, Tomato.
So sorry to take you so much out of your element there, middle of your day. I know how that can be.
Right. It's fine. No problem, dude.
Well, we actually got Moist Noodle here in the middle of his stream. You're currently live, right?
Yes.
So we're
So
mixing
pay
things
no
up.
attention to my chat.
Yeah, we're mixing things up today. But both XeroState and Moist Noodle are two streamers who have been playing the game for quite a while, who have been struggling through the grind for the sake of other people's entertainment, and can probably speak a little bit more towards how the game's been treating everybody lately. So I thought they'd be two great people to bring in for that. I honestly wanted to get you guys earlier on in the year. We talked about that briefly, Moist, but I'm glad to finally get you on now. And I think it's a better time, to be honest, because there's more to talk about. Yeah, there's more news and excitement in the air. So why don't we go ahead and, well, actually, I'm sorry. I always start this off by introducing the folks and letting people who are listening know who they're actually hearing. So why don't we start with you, XeroState? You're a streamer here with Star Citizen, but kind of like, where did that start? Were you playing games before? Did you start streaming before Star Citizen? What's your story?
Well, I've been a gamer my whole life, but I've been playing Star Citizen. I backed in late 2013. So kind of just on and off, every time that there'd be like some module that would come out, like, oh, check it out for a while or whatever. And took part in the SPK wars in 2.67, whatever it was. And basically just kind of checked out the project now and then. I've been streaming for about 5 years. And a little over 5 years. And more seriously streaming in the last 2.5 years. And then I've been playing Star Citizen very seriously, as it were, like a lot. For maybe the last year and 3/4, 2 years, kind of really got back into it. Just been going from there.
Cool. So you really got into it the last couple of years. That's the same story as me. I was playing on and off for 5 years, and then finally the game got to a place where I was like, okay, I could jump into this every week.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get it. It's hard for most people to get into a game that wasn't really a game yet.
Yeah. I mean, even now it's still kind of in question for a lot of people.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Noodle, how about you? You've been on here before, but there's, as Jared likes to say, it's always somebody's first time. Can you tell people where you come from in this story?
So I've been around since all we had was the hangar module, essentially. Didn't play it a huge amount. Because I only had an Aurora in my hangar. So there wasn't much to explore. But the patch where I really kind of jumped in and started playing a lot was 3.0. I had played every patch previous to that, but only had a 5800K with a 970, GTX 970. So my frame rate back then, this was prior to object container streaming, wasn't great. I remember getting excited because once I had 30 FPS near Port Olisar, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But 3.4 was when I really fell in love with Star Citizen, which was the original Jumptown. And that's where I really delved into PvP and found my love of PvP. And that's also the patch when I kind of started streaming. And I've been streaming ever since. And every quarter, it's an up and down affair.
It's a roller coaster.
From patch to patch, it can either be incredibly amazing or incredibly rough. And for me, the last couple of years have been quite rough because of of course, I can't go on a single podcast without talking about the state of desync. The last 2 years, the desync has got worse and worse and worse up until now. And it's like we're playing a new game again.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah, and we'll be diving into that. So you definitely took part in the original Jumptown War Zero. Were you kind of doing that stuff at the time?
I remember logging in and finding Jumptown, and getting my ass kicked, mostly. But yeah, I mean, I remember logging in a few times and playing with a couple of friends back then. But I wasn't real serious with the game then, you know. I probably got really back into the game like 3.7, 3.8, something like that.
Okay.
So I was a little late for that, but I was, like I said, every 3 months or 6 months, I would play for a couple weeks and set up whatever joystick setup I had at the time and try to do some things with it, you know. But,
okay. So I guess before I want to get to kind of the current state of the game, then something I didn't get to talk with people too much about because I don't really take that much part in more of the dynamic events as much as I'd like to. But how did the new version of Jumptown treat you guys, and what did you think of it compared to what used to be in the game? What used to happen with Jumptown?
I guess I'll go first on this one. I didn't have a ton of experience with the original Jumptown, but the experience that I did have, it was just incredibly player driven because there was nothing that wasn't player driven. Mm-hmm. And this one was somewhat player driven, but it's kind of, and I don't mean to rag on CIG too much here, but CIG does have a bit of a history lately of creating things and building things that are so close to the bullseye, and then they just like miss by 1 inch, and you're like, oh, you could have had it, you know. And Jumptown to me was one of those things. It was still very fun. It was still very close to a bullseye, but there was like 3 or 4 kind of, to me, felt like very obvious tweaks, like a second entrance or a roof entrance or something. That would have just been like, oh, that's a bullseye, you know?
Yeah.
So it's close, it's fun, it's great gameplay, and I had a ton of fun with it and made some good money in the game too, and had a lot of fun with a lot of friends. But it just wasn't quite at that mark, and I know it's so hard to hit that mark all the time. But yeah, that's how I kind of felt about it.
It's interesting because I actually forced myself to play in a different way to how I normally would. I think a lot of people know me mainly for dogfighting. I actually did very little dogfighting at the new Jumptown. And it's all because of Salty Mike. Yeah, Salty Mike and Captain Burks. We decided instead to just let other people load up their ships, and then we stole their ships, which was great fun. But I agree with Zero. It's one of the things where it was so close but not quite there. For example, only having one door into the building, which to be fair
stinks, man. One door.
Yeah, which in CIG's defense, they did say we just didn't have enough time to put the second door in because it needed new tech, which I understand. But I think they missed the point of what made the original Jumptown so great, and that was the risk. And other than wasting some time, which is what playing video games is, right?
Hey, now, come on! Don't attack me.
There was very little risk in the new Jumptown, right? Because you didn't put your own money up front. I would have much preferred it if you had to pay the machine or something like that up front to spit out the boxes, right? So you were literally risking your own money. But other than that, I think it was still a great event. Mm-hmm. And probably for me the best dynamic event they've done so far.
Cool.
Yeah.
And going by their past history, the way that they sort of take feedback like this and make changes, are you pretty confident that they'll take what they learned from this first run of this and kind of make something better out of Jumptown in the future?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I don't think they actually do have that good of a track record when it comes to the dynamic events and taking feedback. Because with Xenothreat, the only feedback that they really listened to was preventing people from grief, or trying to prevent people griefing by adding the com array, right? And to send griefers to prison. But then for the Ninetales event, it's completely busted. The Ninetales event was supposed to be a PvP event, but there is actually no financial incentive for red players. Yeah. So it's just turned into an event of trading, actually. But the funny thing is, right, that it's literally the best time to trade because trading is so busted in Star Citizen right now. So it's literally turned into a trading event, and they haven't really tweaked that event at all. So I have some faith that they will address things like the door, but I have a funny feeling that's the only thing they'll really change.
Well, it's nice they'll be able to change that up because they have new outpost types coming in, so they won't even have to change what they were doing before. They just throw those in there.
Yeah.
Xenothreat or Ninetales Lockdown was, to me, like, I feel like Ninetales Lockdown is the best idea of the three, even including Jumptown for me. It was just the least developed of the three by far. You could tell that they spent the least amount of time on it. They tried to get it all together. It's a cool event, but the hard thing is it with the cargo refactor, or like with physicalized cargo, either stopping pirating or destroying those medical ships, people like running like a C2 full of med supplies or something, right? You stop that ship and you can pirate that ship, take the cargo, and then either sell it yourself or, have it, right? Or turn it into somebody at Grim Hex or whatever for money, just like Jumptown, but in a different, situation where the criminals get paid for the anti-hero mission, right? Right now, it actually generates the idea of traders calling people griefers, because if you do what you're supposed to do as a red player and destroy the medical ships, destroy the medical running ships, you're just killing players and getting nothing for it.
Yeah.
And so the players then know that, and they go, oh, you're just blowing me up because you wanted to blow me up, you griefer. And it's like the event it was, again, so close to a bullseye, creating this system where like everybody can benefit, and there's a healthy ecosystem of red, blue players, that kind of thing, and a good, competitive ecosystem. And it created a space where some players call other players griefers, and other players are frustrated because they don't get any money out of the situation when they feel like they were supposed to. So it's just so close that it missed by that little bit. And because it missed by that little bit, then it created this, kind of a monster, as it were.
It's a good point. That was the event that felt the most like they were really trying to create it to test the quantum and quasar systems that they were working on, and it didn't rely on combat. I would say it kind of was around the same as Xenothreat, because you had to also do some of that package carrying with Xenothreat. But this one really felt like it would have benefited the most from more working features than the other two dynamic events.
Yeah, I hope more development.
Yeah. I hope to see it coming back better. But they've also talked about a lot of events, or maybe not a lot, but several events that they have planned for this year. And we've seen some leaks here and there on that stuff. But have you guys heard about or thought about what you might want to see from new dynamic events?
Honestly, not a whole lot.
No. I try not to, because the way that I exist in this community is that I try not to imagine things to get excited. Because then I'm not let down when nothing happens.
I wish I could stop myself.
So,
yes, you have to limit the intake of copium.
Yeah. I take what's given to me, and I try to enjoy it the best I can, essentially.
That's fair. Well, we won't get into leaks on this podcast because I generally don't touch on that too much, but the upcoming event for the next for Invictus Week has leaked out with some more details. We've seen on the monthly reports, though, they've talked about these new dynamic events having more segmented missions, more voiced characters, and they seem a little bit more modular, like they want to get people involved in more than just like, okay, go here, kill these people, and then run away. That's personally what I've been looking for. So I do really hope that we see something that's less combat related and more kind of focused on teamwork and maybe taking advantage of.
I'm gonna sound like a typical old age Star Citizen now when I say
Do it, Boomer.
Tessa Bannister. Like, more of that, please.
Yeah.
Like, the Tessa Bannister missions, they weren't really... So for those who might not know what I'm talking about, Tessa Bannister, back in the oldie days, there was a story arc, and it was a number of missions that were very hard to complete. And I can't even remember if I actually ever completed it because we didn't have any level of persistence back then, and servers would crash every 15 minutes. So if you didn't finish all of them before the server crashed, you had to start from the beginning. And essentially, it was entirely voice acted. The voice actor was great, and essentially, she was based at Comaray, and she was getting like emergency distress beacons going off, and you had to go to the distress beacons and essentially pick up the black boxes. And what was amazing for me was when you picked up the black boxes, it then played the last moments of the person on the ship. And like some of it was genuinely heartbreaking. It was so well written and so well acted. And then eventually it ended up with a boss at the end that you fought. And it made you care about the character and the other characters and the people on these ships. And it made, even though there weren't NPCs necessarily flying around the verse and we didn't have all the planets and stuff back then, it made the verse feel alive, right? And that's a big criticism that I have of Star Citizen right now, in that the universe doesn't feel alive. I don't hear radio chatter in the background when I'm flying around, like near stations
that would be
and stuff
so,
like
like
that.
Elite Dangerous stuff.
Yeah, obviously, I understand why we don't have NPCs flying around because of server performance and stuff like that, and also some of the whatever. But there are little things that they can do to make the universe feel alive, including with the missions, right? And even now, I think my reading comprehension is terrible. I'm so ADHD that I skip entire lines, right? So for me, reading mission logs in the mobiGlas isn't great. And I would much prefer to hear what the mission giver is giving to me. And I don't know, it just make it feel alive, right? And that's kind of what I am desperately hoping for in terms of, I get it. They want to have lots of missions in the mobiGlas. I assume they probably won't all be voice acted in the future, but in terms of the dynamic events, I would like to have those feel a little bit more alive, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the Tessa Bannister missions were still the best piece of narrative missions in general that they've had in the game so far. I like them more than any of the mission givers we've had, because like you said, you would fly, you'd get back to a spot, a predetermined spot, and she'd just, pop up on the speakers. She'd have a little bit of chatter, maybe make a joke, build that rapport, and like actually make you feel like you were talking to somebody rather than just like some dude who's, "Hey, I got a job for you, come to the bar." It's like, okay, all right, buddy. Well, that's cool, but I want more than that. And yeah, I think Tessa Bannister was like the best proof that they can do cool missions in this game. We got a petition to bring her back.
Petitions don't mean anything, Tomato.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry. We got a boycott to bring her back.
There we go.
Don't buy ships until Tessa's back. Zero, did you get to do those missions at all back then?
Not a whole lot. It kind of went down a couple of the mission lines a little bit, but not a whole lot. Never really got into it. Yeah. The one mission giver that I always really liked, mostly because of location, was Recco Battaglia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she was just so cool. And there was a lot of little details in like her office and everything. And the missions she sent you on were normal, but they were cool. And you got to go to Levski, which was always nice. I mean, it's just kind of, it's nice to like meet face to face. And even if it wasn't always face to face, like if every like third mission was a face to face meeting, that would be fine, because it's like you meet them and then like you go down this quest line, and you could do it with a rep system, right? So every time that you level up in reputation, you have to go have another meeting for a new type of mission or whatever, which Miles kind of, is it Miles? Miles kind of does that, where you meet him once and then you go down this quest line a little bit, and then he wants you to like meet him again for the group version of his missions, which is kind of cool.
You've kind of given me an idea.
What's that?
Sorry to interrupt you. Since 3.17 launched, I've done something different every single day.
Sorry, my camera's out of focus.
You have very nice fingers.
Yeah, those are good
I know, camera's out of focus. I have to
just leave the fingers up for the podcast.
And I have never actually successfully ever finished a mission giver mission. Ever.
Really?
Like they've always broken for me every time I've tried them. So tomorrow I might actually go through and see if I can do some mission giver missions. Thank you for the inspiration, Zero.
I was watching, can't remember who it was. It was Galathier. I was watching Galathier and he was doing missions for, I can't remember who it was. There's somebody at ArtCorp still? I forget.
Oh, Twitch.
Twitch, yeah.
Twitch. I think it was Twitch, yeah. And,
she's cool. She might be my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
sorry, go ahead.
Ruto. I think he was doing Ruto missions as well.
Actually, I think I've done some of Ruto's missions, but only like the first patch that he was introduced, which was probably the least buggy that he was.
I'm kind of bummed out that they never got Twitch's hair into the game. When they first brought her in, they talked about that. They showed the model off, and then they were like, "Yeah, so we haven't gotten her hair working, but we're hoping to have that working soon. So for now, she'll just have a cap on." They are still
working on the hips, though, right? Yeah. It's coming soon, so that'll be actually really cool.
Yeah. That's actually a great topic, though, I guess, to kind of start on the current state of the game, because a lot of people don't even know mission givers are a thing. So sometimes I'll be on like Reddit or somewhere, and you'll see somebody be like, you know what? These missions as contract manager is great, but we should be able to go to like a bulletin board in a city or somewhere where we can get actual specific missions for that place, or maybe meet someone we could talk to about that. I'm like, they've got a whole mission giver system that they kind of put on the back burner, I think mainly because they're waiting for server meshing. But you said that Twitch is your favorite right now. What other mission givers have you guys actually gone and seen? Because I think there's like 6 or 7.
I've seen Ruto, Miles, Twitch, Pataglia, the guy, what's the guy's, the Clovis Darneely, I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
So funny. I think that's it for me. They're the ones I've tried to do.
Okay. There's also the drug dude. What's his name?
Oh, yeah, he's actually really cool as well, but I think he's missing in 3.17.
Oh, really?
You're right about that.
I think he might be. He might be in Klesher or something. I don't know.
Just moved his mission area.
You'll just see him hopping the escape route and falling.
That would actually be really funny if like you had a mission giver that you go to and they just get their location permanently changed because they got raided.
I shouldn't have mentioned prison.
Oh boy!
Oh. Now we're gonna go on a rant.
Yeah, we're not to that section yet. Come on,
okay.
We haven't even talked about good things.
Bottle it up, Noodle.
Hold it in.
Bottle it up.
Okay. Well, so let's go from then mission givers to, I guess, what are the actual activities that you can do in this game that are convincingly fun? Because there are a lot that we kind of just throw ourselves at because it's like, okay, this is all that we can do. But like, what's something that you actually are like, ooh, I want to do that?
Convincingly fun, you say?
There's got to be something.
You know what I really enjoy? One of my favorite things is going to be a bit of a surprise to some people, but I really enjoy a good like group mining operation. So like where you have some rock miners, it was 3.12, 3.13, where rock mining was good and prospector mining was good. And also combat was desyncy, but you know, you could have combat. Bounty hunting was out there and everything else. So we would set up a group mining op, and it would be like rock miners on Daymar and then prospector miners on Daymar or like Yella or something. So it'd be like, 5-6 people total. And then we'd have a couple of combat ships like, escorting them. And we actually would intentionally mine like kind of near like Shubin mining facility on Daymar because we knew that people would frequent the area. So there was one night in particular, I had maybe the most fun I've ever had mining. And don't tell Salty Mike that. But we were protecting our rock miners, and we had like a fairly, like probably 5 or 6 different people try to come and, mess with the operation. And some of them had bounties. They were all reds, one after the other, because Shubin was just really popular at the time in 3.13. And it was just a ton of fun. Our combat pilots had a lot of fun. We won most of the fights that night. The rock miners came out with good money. The prospector miners came out with good. Everybody just had fun, and that kind of teamwork based operation. It doesn't matter if it's mining or if it would be salvaging or if it would be exploration stuff or if it would even be bunkers and stuff. If there were bunkers that groups were a little bit more apt to. Just that when group gameplay comes together and there's different facets that all come together to make one whole, that to me is like some of the most fun I could have.
Yeah, that's the magic of the game.
Yeah.
Zero.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you 100%. One of the best nights I ever had in Star Citizen was group mining. Which patch was it? 3?
I can't tell if he's being serious.
3. I'm being deadly serious. I think it was like 3.12 or 3.14 or something. Right? No. I'm serious. 3.12 or 3.14 or something like that. Me, Cutlet, all of our friends, right? And there was an exploit. A unintended consequence where it was possible to get boxes of Hadnite into prison to turn them into merits. It was great. So we went on mining ops. There was like 6 of us or 8 of us. Everybody level 5 crime stat mining. It was amazing. The amount of bounty hunters that came down after us and the amount of action we got was great, dude. There was like 2 people flying escort. The poor Cutlet was driving around in his rock trying to stay alive. Dude, it was amazing. I recommend group mining with level 5 crime stat to anybody. It's so good.
Now there's a twist.
Really, really good.
But what do you do about selling the minerals?
Oh no, at that point we just took them to prison with us to turn them into merits.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what you're talking about there. I was actually thinking of how you could make that work without doing that. Maybe, I guess they have that traveling merchant that's illegal that's coming into the game. Maybe that's a way that you could sell them.
Maybe, yeah.
But that is that actually sounds like a lot of fun. We used to try something like that. We wouldn't do the crime stat, but we would try do the rock mining, have somebody take the minerals out of the rock, put them on a transportation ship, have that ship go fly and sell them while we're continuing to do all the mining stuff. But the whole theme that you're talking about, Zero, of just kind of getting people to work together, doing different things, but all towards the same goal. It's when you start to realize what Star Citizen is actually good at. It's like, as they build out these systems.
Genuinely much better with other people.
Yeah.
You reminded me, Noodle, when you were talking about, and Tomato, you said the same thing about selling the Haydenite, for instance, at play as a traveling merchant. Grim Hex at their admin actually buys Haydenite now because you can find Haydenite in chests in bunkers and things in 3.17. So, and bunkers and caves. And so because Grim Hex buys that Haydenite, I assume they would also buy rock mined Haydenite. So Griefer mining ops are on the table, I guess.
Cool.
That's Zero, if I don't see you doing a level 5 crime stat mining op in the next week, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed.
We'll see how mining works. But
there is an issue with the rock, though, isn't there? I think you can't stack the Hadnite in the container.
I can't remember.
Have to drag each rock one by one, which is. But I recommend anybody use some macro software to transfer from inventory, because that's what I've been doing. I just use voice attack and I say transfer from left or transfer from right, and it just moves everything one by one. It's amazing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So good.
So is that just voice attack, or is there something else it has to plug into?
You can use like the Logitech macro software. Any macro software will do it, as long as it can drag your mouse and click, then you're good. But it just keeps running until I tell it to stop.
Look at this. Star Citizen about to make a new product, like some kind of a quick macro software that's just for inventory management. Speaking of mining, though. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, technically macros are against TOS, but just don't tell them that Moist Noodles.
Look at Moist talking about exploits, talking about macros. You're going to get the podcast in trouble.
He's a true A true
All I'm going
real
to say
life
is I have a
reaper.
macro for everything, including holding W, so I don't have to actively run.
Yesterday I was watching Noodle and he goes, "Start running." And his character just takes off. Stop running.
Yeah.
Just don't even have to
Great.
touch the keyboard anymore. I love it.
So good.
New age gaming.
Exactly.
Well, going back to mining, because we talked about that a little bit, that's something that's been driving people nuts for like the last 6 months. I haven't done it too much in 3.17, but I do want to kind of test out the gadgets. But have either of you taken a chance to test that out much?
Yes.
And how is
the
it?
gadgets are nuts.
In a good way?
Well, yeah, they're useful. I was watching Salty Mike a little bit, and he was testing some stuff out, having a laugh, So we tested a couple out. I saw a video of a guy who found a rock mineable, and he put like 10 gadgets on it, and then he used a hand mining tool to mine a rock size, a gray cat rock sized rock. And when he hit the green zone, it went whoop, and dropped all of it. Like it immediately popped. So I was like, I wonder if you could scale that up and put like 50 of these gadgets on a prospector rock and then mine it with a gray cat rock. And so we tried that. It didn't work because those rocks are thousands of times bigger, and need that much more energy. But it was kind of a cool idea. And then we ended up getting a prospector out and cracking a normal prospector rock like instantly. As soon as it touched the green zone, it was just done and it just cracked. And it was really fun to do that.
How many gadgets did that take?
I mean, it was we probably had 25 or 30 of them on it, something like that. But you could, one gadget measurably makes a rock easier to mine.
Right.
So it's pretty cool when you find. I think it really opens up prospector gameplay for people who don't necessarily have the upgraded lasers. It might open up other lasers that do other, like the Helix might be back on the menu,
right?
Depending on what it does.
Yeah,
for people,
yeah. If you're now opening up that possibility for solo mining with the gadgets, suddenly people can use all kinds of strategies. I do hope that's the direction it goes to. I know a lot of people were worried that this would kind of take away from group mining, which it kind of does. Hopefully they have some things to bring that back in. But it is very cool to see, it's not like, oh, put a gadget on the rock and that takes up the gadget slot for that rock or something like that. It's just kind of, it's an immersive sort of thing. You do as much as you want to put in and you see how the game mechanics work with you.
That was literally what I was about to say. I found it very strange. Like when they first talked about the mining gadgets on Inside Star Citizen, I literally slapped myself in the face, like face palming so hard because I forget his name, was it Dan Truffin? I think his words were, I was playing on my own one night and I was mining and I realized it was hard. So I realized that it would be nice to have a gadget. Which my mindset in Star Citizen when I'm playing Star Citizen is, what can we do to encourage more group gameplay, not take away from group gameplay? Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying the game should necessarily be built around or should alienate individual solo players, but I don't mind. But I'm very friendly with Salty Mike. And Salty Mike has told me many times that he's never come across a rock that he hasn't been able to crack solo, right? So, I don't know, the mining gadgets to me just seem a little bit weird.
I regularly come across rocks. I think that's kind of a
maybe
thing.
Just need to get good.
Well, but that's the thing. Like, there's a gradient of players, right? Like, Salty Mike is amazing at mining. Yeah, I'm not terrible at mining, but I'm just not the greatest. If I come across an 8,500 unit rock with a Lancet mine laser, and I only have one more surge in my consumable slot, I can't break the rock. It's just as simple as that.
Do you know what I would have preferred to have seen? A bookmark system. So you could bookmark that rock and come back to it later with friends.
Yeah,
right?
I imagine that's with the who would that be with? Not the UI team.
Well, we might get it with the Moby Glass and hopefully map rework. Maybe.
I think
they did mention it on the monthly report this month.
Yeah,
placeable stuff like gadgets really does open up so first off, I think mining gadgets were CIG developing door breaching charges. Pretty sure that's
I agree
what
with you. I was going to say that. Yeah.
Is of two reasons. One, they stick to stuff. 2, I watched Captain Burks breach a door in a Carrack with one, because he like, I don't know if he stuck it to the door. I don't think he did, but he put it next to the door, or a couple of them, and then he shot them, and they kind of explode when you shoot them. And it did damage to the door and opened it up. So it definitely, the tech is right there.
Yeah. They showed off that bearing door breach, like, I think it was a good year ago now. And they've been talking about these gadgets that they're working on, the tractor beam, cutting tool, door breach. So should be soon.
This is a perfect segue, by the way. Can we talk about FPS stuff?
Okay, yeah.
Because I don't do much FPS stuff, although I have day before yesterday, I was exclusively doing bunkers all day.
Hiya!
I can't hiya like I used to.
That's
it's
true.
Not
They're better than they used to be.
But I'm so desperate to see things like shields and just more gadgets for FPS people to use.
Well, you must
storming the bunkers.
You must have been excited about this monthly report then from this week.
I think I was drunk when I read it. Wait, what did they talk about? What did they talk about? I did read it, I promise. I can't remember exactly.
Sometimes you gotta be to get through the whole thing.
Sure.
They mentioned that they mentioned AR markers, which I think has to do in some way with saving locations, like you were saying. But they also mentioned that it's not the art team, because they've already done their stuff. I think it was animation. Yeah, animation team is putting in a lot of work into the gadgets that we already know about. And I think that's referring to the stuff they showed on that episode of ISC last year, which were the door breaching charge, the tractor beam tool, salvage tool, cutting tool, and I think that was mainly it. And one thing we've also seen was deployable shields that they've talked about. So I do think that...
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, shields would be freaking awesome, dude.
Yeah, that kind of stuff's really going to be important for like theaters of war. So it's got to be on their mind.
I also hope that, obviously, we got the network sync fixes in 3.17, but it only really applies to player ships, and they've tried fixing stuff on the NPC stuff as well, ships. And I would really...
Worse, I think.
Oh, really? Oh.
Well, not much, but like corner peak advantage is like a full second sometimes.
Ooh.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. So I'm really hoping that in either 3.17.1 or 3.18, they try to put some emphasis on network syncing the FPS aspect a little bit better, because it's never been good in Star Citizen. Ever since I played the first iteration of the PTU, watching other players, they've always been very jittery and rubber bandy, but especially this last year or so, you know, the clip that always sticks in my head was when Burks was doing that test in SBK, and he told somebody to sprint and charge around the corner, and it was literally 3 seconds of desync.
Yep.
What both people saw was completely different, you know. So basically you have sprinter's advantage, right? Which that's how, up until this patch, whenever I've done a bunker, I've done it naked and with my bare fists, because I literally just sprint from NPC to NPC and karate chop them.
It's the best way to do it anyways.
True. It's a little bit harder when they're spawning nonstop now.
It's funny, and Manoodle, feel free to augment this too, but it feels like the reason that your ship bounties have gotten harder is not so much because the AI got better, it's because the sync got better. And instead of the AI shooting 500 meters behind you as you orbit around them slowly, they're kind of shooting at you now.
Yeah.
Because the positional desync in ships got so much better. So the reason that bunkers, I think, are still so janky is there's just a ton of like information overload for those AI. And they're like, okay, the player's over here. So then they unload a whole magazine into that area, you know. And if you happen to be there, you get all of it all at once. And so that's, you know, we get a lot of like instant deaths in bunkers and stuff like that. So there's a lot of goofiness in FPS, but the potential for FPS is incredible. I mean, with the different gadgets, door breaching stuff, I mean, placeable mines and stuff. I mean, imagine putting a mine down and then holding an area and having an NPC walk into it and blow his own ass up, you know, and that's just so cool.
Yeah.
You hear him go, oh shit, boom, you know. That'd just be so awesome.
The environments of this game, combined with the fact that they're going so deep into FPS, is going to make for some really fun stuff. I mean, these abandoned space stations that they're showing us, I'm imagining, which is a dangerous thing to do with this game, but I'm imagining in the future having firefights in these zero-G environments where you can, float or even use push and pull to move around inside of a space station, shooting at people, throwing grenades in zero-G and stuff like that, boarding a ship.
Ball.
Yeah, that stuff sounds really fun. Yeah. But FPS is not really at a place where you guys would recommend it right now.
I mean, obviously there are people who are going to mill sim no matter what. Right.
But not necessarily like one of the more fun things to do, or.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think for me, I am all for the emergent gameplay rather than like pre-setup events. It's not really what I got into Star Citizen for. I came from the EVE Online community. I played EVE Online for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of looking for that experience, not like the thousands, 20 million people in one fight kind of scenario, just like kind of like the drama, the org drama, and the battles, the actual.
Yeah.
But I absolutely understand that there is a huge like milsim following when it comes to Star Citizen, and I want those people to have fun too. Because one of the things that makes Star Citizen great, right, is that it attracts people from so many different kind of gaming backgrounds, and merges them into one universe.
That's such a good point. I mean, I can't tell you, like, while streaming, and I'm sure you get this too, Noodle. Somebody will be like, I used to play No Man's Sky, and I want to get into Star Citizen. I used to play Elite Dangerous, and I want to get into. I used to play Call of Duty. I used to play Arma.
It's everything.
DCS World as well. Like,
I used to play DayZ. Every genre of game, people come for Star Citizen, and it's incredible. I used to play Doki Doki Literature Club, and I want to get into Star Citizen.
Very one-to-one conversion there. But that's why
crazy. That's how it just pulls from every genre. It's so special in that way.
Yeah. That's why I start every podcast out kind of asking people how they got into this, because every single time, I mean, there are some that always pop out. People come from like Elite Dangerous, Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxies. Like, there are games that a lot of people come from into this one, but you're absolutely right. I've never played an MMO before this game. I was never a PC gamer before this game. I didn't care for Space Sims before this game, but like, it just happened.
Dude. It's funny you say that, because prior to me playing Star Citizen, I'd stopped gaming altogether. Like, I was working my my job, like I was in my career, and I was like, right, well, I'm going to be working in IT for the rest of my life, right, Zero?
Yeah, it's definitely not a soul-sucking, mind-numbing career. And yeah, I wasn't playing games anymore. And as Star Citizen has developed, I found myself playing Star Citizen more and more. And actually, thanks to Star Citizen, I've gotten into other games like DCS World, and I've been playing Elden Ring as well. And speaking of DCS World, what's been really nice is, 3.16 was not a good patch for me at all. Like, every patch for like 2 years, the desync was getting worse, and by the time it got to 3.16, I was like, I'm done. I literally can't play anymore. Like, it was just so frustrating how bad it was. So I started playing DCS World. I learned how to fly the F-18, and there was a guy that I met called 3Shy, and he taught me how to fly the F-18, but he runs an aerial display group in the DCS community called the Virtual Black Knights. And holy moly, these guys were incredible. And more recently, he's been teaching me how to fly the F-16. And as a big thank you, because it's not a small task to learn how to fly these planes, and he was incredibly patient. As a big thank you, I actually gave him a saber package for Star Citizen, and I was like, hold on to this. When the network sync is no longer super janky, you are coming to play Star Citizen with me. And I never really expected him to stick around. But
literally the day that 317 dropped, he'd been watching my streams. He was like, "Do I play now?" And I was like, "You play now." And you know what? He's got his own group. There's like 6 of them now playing. He got all of his friends to start playing too, and they have been playing every day. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, I think just to bring it back, I the thing that I love about Star Citizen is how it brings people from pretty much what feels like every genre. And to bring it back to where we came from, FPS needs some love. The FPS sync, because I'm terrible at FPS games, but I see the importance of it, because at the end of the day, I want to be a dropship pilot, right? I want to drop ground troops. I want to fight and support ground troops in the air. I want a reason to dogfight. So it's important to me that those people also have a good experience.
Yeah. And you can do that stuff now. It's just not quite there.
Yeah. And I guess it's a little unfair. I mean, it would be unfair for me to say that FPS isn't enjoyable. I mean, they've put more and I've ranted about this recently, but the main focus of 315, which there's been other things put into, but 315, 316, and now 317 has continuing to be like the looting system, the looting cell system. You're doing most of these things in FPS. You're getting out of your ship, you're finding a bunch of stuff in caves, and you're selling it at stations. You're not doing you're not in your ship for a lot of that.
Right.
And to have a giant chunk of your gameplay be so desyncy, and so at the moment not really that buggy, but buggy, but just so much of that desync, like that needs to be a focus to me. If you're going to be pushing your players, and even mining with the gadgets, you're getting out of your ship and you're into FPS and putting something on a rock. Like we're spending more time like on our feet out of our ships than we ever have in Star Citizen. And the devs are clearly pushing us in that direction. This, the event stuff that we talked about a little bit coming up with Invictus, like we're going to be on our feet, for a lot of it, and that kind of stuff. And when they're pushing us in those directions, I mean, they really have to make that a focus. Like making that work well has to be a focus if they're going to be pushing us in that direction.
I think they're definitely starting to head in the right direction. And this is a weird thing to mention, but I think it is relevant in that, for example, the ground vehicles, right? The Tonk and the Ballista, they really narrowed down the signatures of those vehicles in 317. So much so that I was at the river in a hurricane with a friend in the turret, and we were sat still, and I just saw my shield almost disappear, and I was like, what the what's going on? And then my turret gunner was like, there's a tank. I didn't even see it on radar, and it was right next to us. So I had to fly evasive to try and find this tank, and it was so much fun. So yeah, just more love for FPS, please. And I think what I'm asking for really is, I'm not saying it can't be fun. I just want it to be more fair. And it's not very fair when the person who's sprinting has the advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially with such a short time to kill.
Yeah, exactly.
I do agree with you, Zero, what you're saying. They're putting more focus into it. I think really with the inclusion of Pyro, not to get too off topic here, but I am. The inclusion of Pyro seems to be focusing a lot on that stuff. The new ground outposts, right? The new traveling merchants that you can meet on ground, the planetary navigation mesh for NPCs, the ground vehicles are getting improved. All these things seem to be pointing towards what you're saying, that ground gameplay is becoming much more important. So I would expect that they would focus on making that experience more feasible. Hopefully, I know we say this about everything, but hopefully server meshing will help there in
soon
getting rid of some of that. Yeah, those desync problems. But let's turn back towards something that works really well. So we talked about mining kind of doing all right now. How is cargo hauling? Any of you take part in that stuff?
Well, I'm going to defer to Noodle to this one.
Oh boy, here we go. All right.
Because
it's literally all I did almost all I did yesterday. It's still terrible, dude. Well, look, So let's not call it cargo hauling.
Okay.
It's trading,
Mhm.
right? And first of all, I think the biggest issue that I have with it in Star Citizen, in that a truck driver IRL is not a stockbroker, right? Or like they don't buy the goods that they are loading onto their trucks. I mean, they can if they want to, but that's generally not how it works. I'm a nerd and I play quite a lot of Euro Truck Simulator and American Truck Simulator. And I think kind of what I want is I'm not very smart. I don't want to have to deal with the trading aspect, right? Just give me goods to move from A to B and I will be a happy man. I really think that CIG need to, first of all, separate trading from hauling. They should be two different professions, essentially. But for what we have right now, I thought we were going to talk about something that works well. What we have right now does not work well because 2 years ago, they limited the quantity of stock available at every location. And it wasn't enough back then for the amount of people who were trading. But guess what? There's more people playing Star Citizen now than ever before. So it's even worse now. And I had people coming into my chat earlier on in the week who were saying, trading's amazing, Noodle, you should try it. So I tried it. The only reason trading is working okay right now is because so few people doing it. But the moment that people start thinking that trading is good again, then we circle back to the same problem again, that there won't be enough stock for everybody. And for me, it's just been, I'm really disappointed that we've had this issue for 2 years. People who enjoy trading, like I'm not, I do some, well, historically I've done some trading in the background. It's a nice way to chill out. But 2 years and CIG has never really touched on or tried to solve the issue. But 318, I would hope, given that we're getting the physicalized cargo system in 318, that CIG might finally tie trading in with the Quanta system, which might solve the problem, hopefully.
We'll see if we get that physicalized cargo. We will see. I don't know. They've been quite quiet about it, but
they have been quiet. I really hope so, though, because for me, one of the things that I'm most excited for is piracy, right? And trading or cargo hauling. The state of cargo hauling and trading doesn't just affect people who trade or cargo haul, right? It also affects pirates, which then also affects security organizations. It has this trickle-down effect. And if we can get, and bounty hunting as well. So if we can get trading and cargo hauling into a good state, it actually affects way more people than just the traders or the cargo haulers.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, that kind
that's
of.
The thing.
I mean, that's
we
everything.
mentioned this a couple times. Yeah, for sure. And we mentioned this a couple times that and we've talked a little about the ecosystem idea. Is like CIG really has to nail down and figure out, what do I develop and what do I make work well that creates those trickle down effects that Noodle mentioned, because they can create things at the end of that chain and like, oh, we made this gun work better or whatever. But it's like, if we make it so that, cargo is physicalized, well, now traders get, whatever benefit this might be, blah, 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 blah. And then we can start doing this with like ship weights and different things and how they fly and stuff. And pirates are going to benefit because piracy is going to be, this, that, and the other thing. And it just, and our dynamic events are going to get better because of physicalized cargo or whatever it might be. So CIG really, I think, could benefit probably from trying to figure out, as good as they can, how do we develop things and make things work well that benefit more than one group of people, and how, and build those things into the game. Yeah. And I think the cargo refactor is a great one.
I think it's also really interesting to highlight how a bug somewhere else in the game can destroy an entire profession in the game. And the example that I will give are the ERT and Vaughn missions with the hammerheads. The hammerheads do not countermeasure for torpedoes, right? So every 2 minutes with an eclipse, I can earn 45,000 UEC doing the Vaughn missions.
Ooh, nice.
Because I could just fly in with my eclipse, torpedo it with like 100% success rate with hitting with the torpedo and just jump out, grab another mission. So if I'm earning that much money doing that, why would I ever need to trade?
Sounds like
Right.
Noodle is capitalizing on another exploit.
I've already reported it. Okay, it's not my fault.
Hey, man.
So hopefully it's fixed
It's
for point
there.
one, maybe.
It's there. Get some money.
Nobody tell Noodle that the Idris doesn't shoot back.
Oh,
Wait, what?
I was watching Burke the other day, and he was fighting an Idris, and it just didn't work. It just
So somebody in my chat this morning told me, and I need to test it this afternoon. In fact, I might test it as soon as I'm done with the podcast, that if you go to a mission with a hammerhead or any ship, right, in atmosphere, but you then land, it won't shoot you. So I'm going to give that one a go later.
yeah, it's worth giving a try.
Just take my hurricane, land, get in the turret. Going to be great.
On this topic, I think this will be a great kind of last one for us to touch on in terms of what's good, what's bad to do in the game right now. Let's envelop ship combat. Whether you're doing bounty hunting, whether you're doing some piracy kind of stuff, or you're just hanging out and running some mercenary missions or something. Where does ship combat land on the scale for you guys when it comes to fun things to do in this game?
For me, it's the best it's been in years. But there are still technical issues.
Mm-hmm.
The hit reg right now is pretty bad. Apparently it's an issue with the hitboxes on ships, and then the faster that you'll go, it's a bit like desync, but it's the hitbox moves further away from the ship the faster it's going.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just so nice for the ship that you're fighting to actually be where it appears to be, and to not just randomly explode anymore, because on the server side you've crashed into each other, but on your client you were 300 meters apart.
Yep.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I had a great fight against a Constellation. I was in a Sentinel. It was 2 people in it, so they had a turret gunner. I was like, well, I needed to stay on the bottom side of it. And in 3.15, 3.16, didn't matter. You had no idea if you were on the bottom side of a ship.
Yeah.
And so I was actually able to outturn it, outstrafe it, and stay on its bottom side to keep myself away from that turret gunner. And I ended up killing the Constellation. It was a good fight.
That's cool.
And it felt so good to be like, I see where you are, and that's where you are. You know,
some strategy.
Good feeling.
Prior to 3.17, that was my biggest bugbear, right? In that if you have any level of skill with flight in Star Citizen, it's impossible to, well, not impossible, but you can't make use of all the skill that you have in terms of flight. Because essentially what most people would do prior to 3.17 in size 2 ships, especially the Ares before they got smacked into the ground, which we won't get into that topic, but CIG. What most size 2 ships would do is just abuse desync, get to maximum speed, turn around and face you. So on my screen, I am right over the top of them, shooting them in the back. On their screen, I'm actually 300 meters behind them, presenting my full cross section to them, and I'm in a light fighter and I'm easy to kill.
Yeah,
you know, and how do you avoid that, right? You have to get like 300 meters ahead of them. It's just... It was super frustrating, but yeah, I can't bring myself to complain about the hit reg really at the moment, because I would choose shitty hit reg but good network sync than what we had prior to this, right? So we'll see how it goes for 3.17.1 or 3.18. Hopefully they might have fixed the hit reg issues by then.
Yeah. And from what I understand, the hit reg issue was always there. It was just attached to the desync.
Yeah.
So when they got rid of the desync, it uncovered the hit reg issue, which they couldn't. They uncovered it kind of late, so they couldn't fix it for 3.17 is what they said. And so maybe 3.17.1 will come with a fix. I mean, we can huff a little copium there, but maybe it'll be 3.18.
Huff away.
But either way, they're aware of it and they're working on it, which is really cool to see that communication from the devs.
Obviously, there's still a lot of balancing to go. A lot of weapons feel super whack. It's a little bit disappointing that all components are practically the same at the moment. But realistically, I think until we get the armor system in the game, we're kind of going to be stuck in this situation. Some ballistic weapons just seem crazy. Luckily, that hasn't really taken off as a meta yet, and I kind of hope it doesn't. But yeah, and UI as well. Like UI, man, it's still, there's a lot to be desired. And I really, really miss having a helmet HUD. And I know they talked about it in the monthly report this month, but I really genuinely miss seeing self status and target status on my
Those would
helmet.
be so great. Yeah.
So
those
when
would
I
be
look
so
around
great.
with my head tracking, because, you know, most of the time when I'm dogfighting, you know, I'm looking up with my head tracking to track the target. I want to see what's happening to my shields and their shields as we're turning, you know, and I'm pretty desperate for that.
Agreed. Hopefully with the visor rework, we see that brought back.
And that's going to be that's player attached. It's not ship attached. I mean, sort of, it's ship related, but it was always more of a visor thing, and they did the sliced canvas HUD or whatever, you know, so they've been working on the HUD, but I don't even know if that's a HUD edition. That's more of a...
No, they talked about it in the monthly report. It's actually the visor.
Yeah, visor.
So, so hopefully we'll have that soon. And the MFDs, man, like, should we talk about for a second about how a lot of people on Reddit thought that size 2 ships no longer had shields on the side because of the MFDs?
Oh, good. But you can kind of blame CIG a little bit for that, because their MFD shows 50-50 zeros, and so you look at it and you go, oh, my side shields don't have any shields. But you got to translate that from simple MFD speak to the game, you know.
That's one of those weird things that comes up with the changes that they're making.
And I have
the same question that people have with the I'm flying my Constellation, why do I only have 25% shields all the way around? It's like, well, it's 100%, it's just split 4 ways. But it's a step that a lot of people's minds don't take when they see 25s on their screen. You know.
It's
I
not
have a
100%
funny feeling
charged
as well that the MFDs are probably the reason why I lose like 20 FPS when I look forward in my cockpit.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Because it's still the original tech, right? That's probably really poorly optimized. So maybe once we get the new MFDs, we'll get better performance in cockpits. Because it is actually quite an depending on obviously what GPU and CPU that you have. If you are lower on hardware, lower end hardware, you probably don't want to be losing like 10 or 20 FPS when you're in a cockpit, right?
The ASOP terminals use similar tech to MFDs, right?
I think it's the same tech.
The ASOP terminals use
they
building
just redid
blocks
the
now.
ASOP terminals, so maybe MFDs
it's just generally rendered to texture stuff, right? So
I don't think the MFDs are on building blocks or anything.
No, they're not yet. So that's literally what we're waiting on now.
Going back to the ship combat real quick, just before we wrap things up, one last question I wanted to ask was, when you're fighting people, because you guys both sort of got into this topic of like Moist, you said that ballistics were very powerful, and you talked about your fight with the Constellation Zero. Do you feel like you guys are seeing enough, or I won't say enough because that's an obvious no, do you feel like you're seeing a good amount, an entertaining amount of diversity between fights? Can you go into a fight and actually figure out, hey, this is what I need to do to beat this person?
Yes and no. So the one thing that I was worried about prior to 3.17 going live was that everybody was just going to be running the new ballistic Gatlings in Talons. But luckily that hasn't really taken off. I am seeing diversity in ships that I'm fighting. I'll be 1 minute I'll fight a Vanguard, the next I'll fight a Constellation, and it's really nice actually seeing people putting friends on turrets. It does make the fight a lot more challenging as a light fighter pilot. I'm seeing people in Hurricanes. I'm literally seeing all sorts. What I'm not seeing though is variation of weapons. Everyone's just using energy repeaters at the moment, which is kind of lame, I'll be honest.
Little meta.
It's only meta because nothing else is.
Yeah, nothing else really works very well.
Like distortions even were kind of an interesting addition to some builds, because now you're dealing with a little bit of like, you got to worry about the distortion weapon, and the other person doesn't have as much damage, but they got the distortion, so it's kind of a cool little meta change. But now distortions are just, I mean, I don't know, say useless, but they're pretty close to useless. So we firmly cemented the laser repeater meta as this is what you fit on a light fighter. You don't put anything else on right now. So
well, hopefully they continue with what they did last year with some of the combat tuning they started, because I think both on the FPS and ship side of things, once we start getting better damage types and stuff, get a little bit more exciting to fight with people.
just want to say that I think one of the best changes that CIG ever made to their development structure was adding the ship experience and player experience teams.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, that really is.
Those guys, a lot of those guys came from the community.
They still do. Yeah.
They really do listen to feedback. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be implemented. What you want will be implemented, or because obviously you're sharing an opinion, but it's the player experience and ship experience is definitely getting better, and I think that is mostly down to those two teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing that they've definitely proven at CIG is that the people who are making the game want a lot of the same things as the people who are playing it. It doesn't always translate well enough into the game, but like when we hear them talk, when I've talked to them, when like you were saying now, a lot of the player experience team, the people who have the first say on these kinds of things are people who from the community. There's a lot of agreement between where we want the game to go with some of these things. And that's always been kind of nice because you see things happen and you're like, okay, that's exactly what the community wanted. This desync fix was huge. Definitely something a lot of people were looking forward to. So I'm excited about that team. Yeah.
Man, we haven't even talked about friggin' performance.
Yeah.
The game, although for me, my frame rate hasn't really gone up, but it feels so much smoother. It just doesn't really hitch and stutter anywhere near like it used to. Just generally the game just feels so good at the moment.
Well, and we don't talk about things when they go away because we've dealt with them for so long that now they're gone and we're like, we just kind of don't think about it. But I have far less of those. You try to engage your quantum and it doesn't engage.
Yeah.
Less of those. And it still happens once in a while, but not as often. And less of like when you come into Portal Lazar, there's like that 10 seconds of like your ship just non-responsive because there's like some resync event happening. I haven't had that happen once in 3.17 yet. So it's like, these are big changes to our gameplay that we just we gloss over because our brains are just kind of wired to expect something to work, you know?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Canopy opening and closing, that was a good one. That went
so
away
annoying.
And nobody remembers it anymore.
You just be flying and it opens. You're like, wait, why? Yeah. All right, well.
I always loved the Saber. They fixed the Saber with that I think it was the Saber or the Gladius. They changed the ship. They installed these little canopy locks that would cycle to keep the canopy shut so it couldn't open.
Got all
this great.
Well, guys, that about wraps up our hour here. I appreciate you both coming on the show. This is a fantastic talk. I think this is a great look at kind of some of the things that do and don't really work that well in the game right now, but a good progress update per se on what gameplay is like for the multitude of people who are starting to join the game now. 3.17 brought some stability. There are new YouTubers and streamers who are playing the game, bringing it to new audiences. We got a big dynamic event coming up this month, and honestly, more kind of excitement's going into space games. So I think this is a good time to give people a little bit of an update on what's going well with the game. So thank you both. But if you'd like, please tell everybody where they can find you, what kind of content you're making, and how often you take advantage of exploits in the game.
Twitch.tv/moist_noodle. I pretty much stream every day. I'm starting to stream from midday British time. Real time, sorry. If you like hearing people rant about prison, didn't even rant about prison, Tomato. My stream is probably the stream for you, but I'm pretty much doing something different every day now. So I'm not just exclusively dogfighting, which is kind of cool. But for me, the game is the best it's ever been. And I'm a lot less ranty than I used to be.
Didn't get to prison today, unfortunately. We'll save that for a whole podcast episode. Time. Yeah.
Episode 69.
69. Prisons. That's just a bad combo.
You can basically take a microcosm of how many rants Noodle, I call it RPW, rants per week, and then take that number, and that will tell you how the game is doing if you watch Moist Noodle.
Sounds like an analytic you can pull up on the Twitch manager, RPW.
As somebody just said in my chat, less salty, more moist.
True.
Osmosis.
Yep.
So keep an eye on that RPW numbers, everybody, and that'll tell you how the game's doing.
Where can everybody find you, Zero?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Tomato. This is your podcast, my bad.
No, please. The host Noodle.
You can find me on onlyfans.com/zero. No, I'm kidding.
Cool.
The twitch.tv/XeroState. I stream like, I don't know, 5 or 6 days a week because apparently I have no life. And yeah, I have a terrible YouTube channel and I post stupid stuff on Twitter sometimes, but mostly the Twitch thing.
I love watching you both on Twitter. I have a blast. It's some good humor.
I should probably. Oh God, I almost got cancelled on Twitter. Let's not go into that. I'm trying to behave myself on Twitter.
I remember that day. I had to do some. I'm a mod for Noodle as well, and I had to do some damage control, and it was great.
Ooh, yay! Scandal.
Thanks, Zero. You'll get paid one day, I promise.
All right. Well,
I have hot takes.
Oh, we love hot takes, though, especially on Twitter. It's the home of hot takes.
Not as hot takes as HC Vertigo does with his low flying.
HC Vertigo also has plenty of hot takes. I enjoy watching HC on the captain's table. Plenty of hot takes there with Paul.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, guys, thank you again. I've got to get ready for a stream. Moist, I know you're live right now, so you're probably getting back to it. Zero, I don't know what you're doing, but maybe we'll all be jumping back into Star Citizen here. But I'd like to thank you both for coming to the show. Episode 50. Yes, I'm more than excited to be at that point. But this has been the Launch Sequence Podcast. I've been your host, Keenan, and thank you all for coming and listening. We'll see you in the next one.